Welcome back to the Anonymous Throwdown. We have an exciting topic today. We finally have a new Arkham game to discuss. I think this is something we've all wanted to do for many years now, but Warner Brothers hasn't been inclined to make another Arkham game. So they had to wait for Camouflage, a virtual reality development studio, to come in and pitch an idea. So they got greenlit, and they have now just published Batman Arkham Shadow. It's getting rave reviews across the internet, and it's being considered one of the greatest virtual reality experiences out there. So first off, I just want to hear what did you guys think of the story? Kobe, you're the only one who's gotten to play it, like actually play it, and not just watched on YouTube. So we'll start with you.
Yeah, so I'll say, let me first chime in on the gameplay because, like you said, I've had a chance to get hands on the game. I bought the MetaQuest 3S, which, by the way, is very, very expensive. You know, in the US, it's $299, but in Spain, I paid $480 US. So I think it's just because the VAT tax here made it more expensive. And then the product itself was just more expensive here. So anyway, so I paid almost $500 to play the game, 500 euros. And I will say that the gameplay is fun. For me, it's a challenge because I get dizzy playing VR games, which I've just learned. And I put on every setting that there is. There's like easy, medium, hard, and comfort. And comfort is the easiest of the four. I have it on comfort. I have it on where when you turn, it doesn't turn at one moment. It jumps to make it less disorienting. Which does kind of make it less immersive, but it's supposed to make it less dizzying. For me, it's just a challenge. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but for me, I get very, very dizzy, especially with certain things like when you're climbing up walls. I was like, holy fuck. I was like, am I going to pass out? Kind of thing. So to me, I've played an hour and a half of the game, and I will say the gameplay is super fun. However, with the gameplay, it's really cool. The stealth is really cool, is what I would honestly say. The stealth is very, very immersive. And I love, being in the gargoyles and like you look directly down and you see people under you. It is really cool. And you look down, you see that you're Batman and you pull the batarang out of your chest. You pull a smoke bomb out of your wrist. It's really, really cool and a fun experience. One thing I will say is that I was also rewatching some Arkham Knight gameplay recently, and one thing that did stick out to me is that the gameplay is very, very, very basic compared to a game like Batman Arkham Knight. In Arkham Knight, you have all these combos where you can throw explosive gel at people, and you can back claw people towards you and smack them down, and you can throw. So in this game, it is a lot more simple, and even the way in which you hit people is very limited. Insofar as when you punch somebody, you have to punch them in the exact place the game wants you to punch them. So you can't actually, it's not as much of a free flow combat in VR. It's a little bit more on the rails in terms of how you can punch and where you hit and that kind of thing. And the physical combat does get slightly repetitive, but it is still fun. I think the stealth really shines in the game for sure. Now, as for the story, my personal feeling is that it's okay. It's solid even. My initial rating, I gave it a 7 out of 10. After further reflection, I probably give it closer to a 6. Maybe we'll break it even at 6.5 out of 10 is maybe where I fall. Overall, it's a solid game with a solid story, but there are some issues with the story. There are some inconsistencies that don't make sense. There are some plot lines that I felt were underwhelming and didn't really deliver on the promise that they had. And there are some other obstacles, I think, with the game as well. And fundamentally, what it came down to for me is I think that this game has a lot of missed opportunities. And that's why when I first played through the story, I gave it a 7 out of 10. And sorry, I know I'm rambling. I'm about to finish. And it's Marcel, but I gave it a 7. And after further reflection, I've dropped it down to a 6. And the reason why is because there's a lot of missed opportunities here. And spoilers ahead in this podcast, by the way. If you don't want to be spoiled for things in the game, please click away because we are going to discuss spoilers. So there is no Batwing in the game. There is no Batmobile in the game. There is no true Batcave. There's no Wayne Manor, and there's no Bat Family. There's Barbara Gordon barely. You see her one time in person, and then she's on the computer the rest of the game. There's no Alfred in person. And so when you add up all these things of like what would be the most badass VR experience, it would be like being in Gotham, driving the Batmobile, driving the Batwing, flying around the city, like all these things that would be so badass that upon further reflection, when you step outside of the narrow scope of you just played the game, what's your review of it? When you step outside of like, what could this game have been? Fundamentally, what it is it's 5/6 of the game takes place in the Blackgate prison, and if you were to draw up your ideal Batman VR experience, is it going undercover as a undercover inmate and, you know, doing fetch quests and finding things for Joe Chill? I mean, it's not bad. It's just a missed opportunity in a lot of ways. And this is not what most people are saying right now on YouTube. The reviews are very, very positive. So maybe I'm crazy, but I also want to be clear. It's a serviceable story and a good story. It's not bad. There's just a lot of missed opportunities, in my opinion. Sorry, I really rambled there. I apologize.
No, you're all good. You know, you actually played the game, so you'd have more thoughts than me, and I haven't really watched all the way through it essentially, but I am going to be playing it very soon. Like, I am excited to get my hands on it based off of what I see. And like you said, the stealth looks like it's one of the most fun things of the game, where you're going to like go around and basically pick people off one by one. That looks like it's immersive because you're in that type of like mind space of Batman. You're being Batman, you know. The combat, I definitely do agree. It does look like it's a little sticky. You know, the fact that you have to hit certain markers instead of just being able to hit wherever you want and having enemies react to wherever you hit in that moment. That kind of does pull away from a bit of the immersion with the actual combat of, you know, what when you're punching and throwing batarangs and doing all that stuff. That kind of like limits it to many degrees, because now you're just punching numbers. At that point, it's a rhythm game, and that kind of like throws it off in many degrees. From the story, yeah, it kind of doesn't seem like it's the best thing ever, but it's serviceable for what they're doing. And, you know, Camouflage doesn't seem like they're a storytelling, you know, type of studio that's, you know, mainly driven off of that. So for what they did and how they kind of incorporated some of the Arkham aspects, it's really good. I would say that the acting has definitely elevated the writing to many degrees, because holy crap, you know, just hearing Roger Craig Smith as Batman again, it's so nice. Just hearing him go around, you know, talk as Batman, it's really, it's refreshing to hear, you know, the former Arkham voice actor being back. For Two-Face and whatnot, and all the plot twists in the end, I think that you guys would be more serviceable in explaining that. But from what I heard, a lot of this story kind of falls down to retconning some Arkham things. And if you know me, I hate that. I really do hate that. I can't lie. Like, retconning Arkham stuff, like, now we have to look at the timeline again and be like, what the hell happened? Because now everything's all twisted again. And it's really funny. They might even have to make a second game, like an actual Arkham Origins 2, to at least explain Two-Face's like comeback and how he knows the things that he knows. But, you know, there are some things in that story that are kind of like weird from what you guys explained. I would like to hear your guys' synopsis of the story too, if you would like to do that.
Yeah, so I'll give my thoughts, and then I think that Kobe has a really good handle on the story if he wants to go through it. And we can either talk about it beat by beat, or we can do the recap and then give our overall thoughts. But as far as my impression, I only watched it on YouTube, so I don't know how it feels to experience combat or stealth. I think it looks cool. I do think that virtual reality currently is not in the same state that console gaming is, so the graphics aren't going to look as good. The gameplay isn't going to be quite as complex. And that's something that, for some reason, there's a lot of pushback whenever I say that. But when, like Kobe mentioned, when you look at Arkham Knight, a game that was on consoles 10 years ago, I mean, it graphically, I think, looks significantly better. You have like the dual play system, you have a much bigger map to explore. But for where virtual reality is, I think they did a really good job. I also didn't really mind the direction they took with the story. There, like you guys were mentioning, are a few retcons that bothered me a bit. I don't know that any of them are like the biggest problem ever. I feel like it's kind of equivalent to some of the things in like the Star Wars prequels that don't really line up with the original trilogy. But yeah, overall, I think Arkham needs to stop doing two things. The first is like gaslighting us into thinking that there's going to be a crazy villain reveal. They've done that with the Arkham Knight. They've now done that with the Rat King. They did that with Black Mask secretly being Joker. Gotham Knights even did that with the voice of the court. It's becoming this trend of like, we're going to do this secret villain reveal. Who is it? And then it's never anyone that interesting. The other thing is they need to stop marketing their games incorrectly. I don't know why Arkham Shadow wasn't marketed as you go undercover into Blackgate. I don't know why they treated that like an early game plot twist.
Agree.
You know, just because
it's the majority of the game.
Exactly. And a lot of people who are Arkham fans who maybe haven't played a lot of VR will be dropping $300 to $500 on this system for this game. And, you know, if you're going to make major swings and changes to the established formula, and during the marketing, just be like, no, it's a traditional Arkham game in VR. I could see that being, you know, frustrating to someone who feels like that's false advertising. Now, like I said, I do think that there's some retcons and some problems with the story where it works quite well as an Arkham Origins sequel. And I'd even argue it works quite well as a standalone experience. I think that a lot of the stuff with Falcone was really cool. I actually liked this origin for Two-Face as well. But I do think it would have been stronger if they just decided to make this its own original continuity. And maybe if they'd leaned into like more gameplay that would have served virtual reality better. So in other words, rather than having a lot of sequences that are like, oh, go get contraband for this random guard or prisoner or whatever. If it had been like, Killer Croc is in the sewers and we're going to do kind of an Arkham Asylum style encounter with him. I don't know. I wish that some of those opportunities had been handled better. I felt that some of the characters were underutilized, but overall, I'm just happy that we have a new Arkham game to talk about.
Yeah, so I'll do a quick overview of the story, and this is going to be the Spark Notes version. I'm going to be skipping a lot of plot lines, but just the Spark Notes. So the game opens, and Batman is meeting with Jim Gordon and Harvey Dent. And this Rat King is emerging, and the Rat King is counting down 7 days until the city goes to shit, basically. And they're kind of like a sort of populist uprising of sorts. It's kind of similar to the third act of the Batman, where there's all these sort of disgruntled sort of people who are you know, upset about their economic situation, upset about the leadership in Gotham and the mayor, and they hate the police and they just hate everything. And so they're kind of like it's like a riot uprising sort of thing. And it's led by this guy named the Rat King. So you're with Harvey Dent and and Commissioner Gordon. You're trying to figure out who it is. And then there's an assassination attempt on Jim Gordon as you're meeting with them. And so then you chase down the assassin of who's trying to assassinate Jim Gordon. You find the guy, and it's a guy who ends up not being very important, but he's one of the Rat King's main sort of guys, and he ends up committing suicide in front of Bruce. He tries to save him, but he can't, and so then the sniper guy dies. And he was trying to ask the sniper dude about the Rat King to figure out who the Rat King really is. But when the guy kills himself, then he is like, well, I need to find another way. What he decides is that he's going to go undercover into Blackgate prison, because there's a lot of Rat King people in the Rat King gang or whatever in prison. And so he's going to try to go undercover and meet people and figure out and try to infiltrate and figure out who the Rat King really is. And so this is kind of the middle third of the game. The middle third of the game, the second act of sorts, is you meet with Falcone, and you meet with Joe, and you meet with these other inmates, and you meet with this guy this Yamasuro, I think is his name, who ends up being an undercover cop, and all these things. So like you're meeting all these people trying to figure out who the Rat King is, which is basically just the middle half of the game. There's some Batman stuff in there because he somehow sneaks out of prison every night to go become Batman, and then he comes back, and it's crazy. He tries to get into death row, and then that's a whole process because you have to get all these things. The second act is the part where, in my opinion, the game drags a little bit because there's a lot of different steps to figure out who's the Rat King, who is this guy. You go to counseling with Scarecrow and Harley Quinn, and you go there with Joe Chill and the ventriloquist, all these people. And it's kind of an amusing scene. In this process as well, you do encounter the Joker, and the Batman is Batman is interviewing the Joker, and he's asking him, what do you know about the Rat King? The Joker doesn't know anything. He's literally like trapped behind this concrete wall. There's not even like, there's no way the Joker can get out. He's literally like cemented in there. And he's asking him what he knows, and the Joker's like, I really don't know anything. And it was true. He has nothing to do with the story. He is just kind of an Easter egg in the game. So then from there, basically, long story short, I'm skipping through some plot lines. Batman is framed as being responsible for the murder of Yamasuro, who ended up being a GCPD informant. Now, Yamasuro didn't actually die. You discover this later that he's fine, but he's framed. And then basically, Bruce Wayne, who's undercover in the prison, he's framed by Jim Gordon and Harvey Dent as being the Rat King. So people start to suspect that Bruce Wayne undercover is the Rat King. And so then he goes to trial, and Commissioner Gordon, and by the way, you have a dialogue option to tell Harvey and Commissioner Gordon that you are Bruce Wayne. And when you tell them that, they're like, yeah, right, you're a liar. So it's this weird thing. Now, that was a very immersion breaking thing, because all Batman had to say is like, hey, Commissioner Gordon, remember when this or that happened, or this, he could have gotten out of that in that way, but he just doesn't say anything to make it clear that he really is Bruce Wayne or Batman or whatever. So, but anyway, so he's going on trial. As he's going on trial, Scarecrow is there with this poisonous gas, and he's trying to put it on Bruce Wayne as he's undercover on trial. And he knocks it out of Scarecrow's hand, and it spills onto Harvey Dent, and Harvey Dent becomes Two-Face. Now, Bruce Wayne is sort of viewed as responsible for this, even though, like, are we going to ignore that Scarecrow is trying to put gas in his face? It's like, it's kind of Scarecrow's fault, kind of Batman's, or kind of Bruce Wayne's, 50-50, whatever. So through this whole process, there's all these flashback scenes, and it becomes very apparent that Bruce Wayne and Harvey Dent were childhood best friends growing up. Now, through these repeated flashback scenes, of which there are 7 in the game, every night that you go to bed, there's a flashback scene with Harvey Dent. It does become very apparent Harvey Dent is going to have a huge role in the game, and indeed he does. This leads us into the third act, where Bruce Wayne again escapes prison and becomes Batman, and he basically learns the whereabouts of the Rat King. They're on this ship in Blackgate Prison, and the ship is headed towards Gotham. By the way, this prison has the worst security of any prison ever. All the Rat King people all broke out of the prison and got on this boat that's in the prison, and they're sailing towards Gotham. It's like insane how Batman escapes every day from the prison, becomes Batman, and then comes back into the prison and goes to bed. So it's, I don't know. It's not really prison, really. Good.
Not only that, Kobe, this is the 4th major outbreak at this prison at this point, because there were 2 major outbreaks in Arkham Origins, one at the beginning and one at the end.
Oh, that's true.
There's a 3rd one in the spin-off game Arkham Origins Blackgate. So this is like major breakout number 4.
It's actually hilarious.
Bro,
but,
Blackgate and
it is
Arkham
what
are
it is.
competing.
I mean,
They're competing on the worst security, bro.
The worst security. Yeah. Okay, so basically Batman boards the ship of the Rat King people, and he encounters the Rat King. But there is no Rat King. It's just Two-Face. And so it's revealed that that Harvey Dent has been the Rat King all along. It was, I'm going to be honest, and I saw a review from a YouTuber named That Boy Aqua, and he said the same thing. Like, once you start seeing the flashback scenes over and over and over again, it becomes very apparent. Like, okay, they're gonna, Harvey Dent is the big reveal. Basically, then at this point, they get into a little fight, whatever. Joe Chill, who you met earlier in the game, Bruce doesn't know it's Joe Chill, but Harvey Dent kidnaps Joe Chill. And Batman encounters him, and Harvey Dent is like, I'm going to kill Joe Chill because he killed my best friend's parents when he was 10 or whatever. Batman takes off the mask and says, I'm Bruce Wayne. I'm your best friend, Harvey, and I don't want you to kill Joe Chill. And so Harvey doesn't. He tackles them off the building. They somehow both survive. I don't know how. Batman saves Joe Chill and tells him to get out, and you're safe. And then it's basically revealed at the end of the game that Harvey Dent has amnesia, so he forgot that Bruce Wayne revealed himself as Batman. But you defeat Harvey Dent, aka the Rat King, and credits roll. That's pretty much the game.
That is rough. I can't even lie. I'm not even gonna lie. I mean, I'm sure the story is executed, and I said this before. The writing, it kind of is elevated by the acting, but holy cow, the whole Two-Face thing feels very similar to Bane, but like worse. It's more poorly executed, and I don't know. Like it would have been better if it wasn't in Arkham, right? Right? If it was just like its own thing. I just don't understand how Two-Face is the Rat King, right? Maybe I'm missing something there, but that just doesn't. It just that's rough. That's rough.
Yeah, so the story I actually think has a lot of really well executed moments, and I think a lot of the moments that sound awful actually play out better than maybe you'd think. Like the moment where Batman reveals himself to Harvey is actually an incredibly strong scene. Like,
Yeah, that one sounds actually
That is
part sounds
really good.
yeah.
Really good.
And I'm with you. Like, if this had been a standalone thing, or if they'd said, hey, we're taking Arkham Origins and adopting it into a new canon, so it's going to be separate from the Rocksteady games or something, that would have pissed people off. But I think even that could have worked. And then you wouldn't have had to give him amnesia. You could have that consequence lingering over a possible sequel where it's like, now Harvey knows. Harvey knows that Batman is Batman. Like, that would be really cool and tense, but instead we just have to give all these villains amnesia. I'm really excited for the next Origins game where Harleen Quinzel or somebody finds out that Bruce is Batman and then also gets
honestly, it doesn't ruin the other Arkham games, but it really like makes you question like what's wrong with Harvey. If he has amnesia, why doesn't he have amnesia in the next game that we see him in, which would be Arkham City? Like, he remembers his whole past. He remembers his wife. He remembers the whole buildup to him becoming Two-Face. But now it's a whole different story, and he had amnesia. So it's like, what?
Yeah, well, and the like retcon that Bruce was kind of the person to do that to Two-Face. Like, I've seen a few people already start throwing in headcanons and throwing in like possible explanations. But I honestly feel like it's, and this is what I said in my review. I think it's a stretch at best. I think it's like really a stretch that these two were best friends since childhood. And part of that just comes from wanting to take creative liberties when you're making a prequel. I mean, it's the same reason that George Lucas thought it would be cool if Anakin built C-3PO in The Phantom Menace, even though Darth Vader obviously has no idea who C-3PO is in the original trilogy. Like, there are just some of those things that aren't quite going to connect. But I just don't feel like Arkham City and Arkham Knight support this idea that they were like childhood best friends, and that like the way that the courtroom scene plays out, that's actually, in my opinion, one of the weaker scenes. Just because I mean, you have Jonathan Crane like start self-medicating in the middle of court, and then he's like gonna go and gas Bruce Wayne in front of a judge, the district attorney, and the commissioner. Like, I just don't understand the logic there. And then I think it's really far-fetched that whatever chemical he has gets on Harvey the way it does, melts him the way that it does, and then I don't know, like it just feels really obscure. And then yeah, for Harvey to go from like Malone somehow did that to me using Crane's like chemicals or whatever, to Falcone did this to me and Batman failed to protect me, I hate them. Like, I just don't really understand the jump in logic there. I was actually listening to some of the Arkham Knight audio when you arrest Harvey in that game, and there are already some comments on there like, man, this hits harder after Arkham Shadow. And I'm like, not really, because it's not referencing anything like that could be associated with Arkham Shadow. Like, it's very clearly been a retcon.
They were mainly like buddies. They were like essentially like cop buddies before he turned into Two-Face, when he was like the district attorney. At least from my understanding, when they were talking about this with in Arkham Knight and whatnot. But uh, contradictions and retcons aside, the story doesn't even sound that bad, which is a good thing. You know what I mean? I think that them having a serviceable story for VR and having it be like 6 to 7 hours long is actually a really good thing. This could always be improved upon too. So like those little like combat things where you have to see the numbers, maybe instead of that, they just let you kind of like do whatever you want. All this can be improved in the future, and I think this could be a good thing for VR. I think that for the most part, though, it's a bad thing to do it with the Arkham IP because you don't have anything else coming out for Arkham besides this, and it's kind of hard to get excited for something that a majority of players probably aren't going to play. Like realistically, the most of the previous players that have played Arkham aren't going to play this game. Like I've already had a hard time trying to get this VR thing, and it's like, goddamn, you know what I mean? Personally speaking, I think that it's really hard for Arkham fans to get excited for a game like this. And yeah, drop like $400 for a console that will kind of even contradict or even like, retcon some things. So overall, I think it's a good thing for VR, but I think it was just kind of rough to have an Arkham game that isn't really an Arkham game.
Two main things that I wanted to talk about. One, I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on what I said earlier regarding it being a missed opportunity, because that's one of the things that, sorry, I'm closing my door here. That's one thing that really stood out to me is there, an Arkham VR game inherently is so badass, but what isn't badass is playing as an undercover Bruce Wayne as an inmate for half of the game. It's just not badass. Let's be honest. I'm not saying it's bad. It also went on so long. Because it happens about an hour some odd into the game where you go undercover. I thought it was going to be like one mission and then you go back. But no, it's like the rest of the game. You are undercover as Bruce Wayne. I thought that was a really interesting choice, and it leaves a lot to be desired of these other things they could have included.
No, yeah, 100%. I think they could have done like what Jake said, the Killer Croc mission. Like that would have been amazing to go and like go try to talk to Killer Croc and see what he knows, or go into the sewers and get chased by him. Kind of like Arkham Asylum, but you're in VR and you have to run away and look at the proper directions to go. Or like a Scarecrow mission where you're stuck in the Scarecrow world and you kind of have to roam around and not be seen by him. Like stuff like that would have been interesting. Or I don't even know, like random flashbacks into not even like Bruce Wayne's childhood with Harvey Dent, but mainly like Bruce Wayne's like, life as growing up as trying to be Batman, or seeing some of his training stuff in his eyes, or just going around Gotham and actually seeing, different crimes happening that you could stop. Like that would have been far more interesting, I'm assuming, than what we saw. And I really think that even here there was a possible way to still do like the whole Falcone Maroni war thing with Batman, and do even like a long Halloween type story in VR without breaking canon and doing all this stuff. Like there's ways to do a proper story without doing the whole canon breaking thing and having all these characters that they already have lined up, like the Rat King. And, that could have been its own separate thing alone with Harley Quinn, and, seeing their rise to power, and, Jonathan Crane and seeing how he becomes, Scarecrow. Like all that stuff could be done in a very interesting way without taking what they already had from the future games and kind of like melding it into something different. But yeah, there are a ton of missed opportunities. I would have loved to see like a long Halloween adaptation or something like that for VR.
Yeah, so as far as missed opportunities go, I mean, I've always thought it would be cool to see the Harvey Dent origin in the Arkhamverse, and I do think they mostly did a good job. Again, does it really nicely tie into the rest of the Arkhamverse? Not per se, but I still think as a standalone origin for Two-Face, it's quite good. I really liked the stuff with Joe Chill. And I even liked the arc that they had for Batman, where he has to overcome his anger, and the one Scarecrow nightmare that is in the game is you having to battle like the angry version of Batman. That was a really cool premise, and then have that payoff at the end with Joe Chill, where you let Joe Chill go, was a great idea that I thought was I thought that was the best part of the game. I thought, like you, Kobe, that the like inmate at Blackgate stuff was interesting, but it was long. And there was a lot of filler where you'd like want to go out to the prison yard and the guard would be like, nope, you have to go get me some drugs before I'll let you in. And then you have to like go and find who has the drugs, and then you have to like bring it back. And so you just get these fetch quests that just didn't move the story forward in any way, and didn't really introduce you to other interesting characters or locations. And even more than that, I really, as far as an Arkham Origins sequel goes, feel like it only encapsulated one of the many things I would have liked to have seen. When Batgirl or when Barbara Gordon showed up at the beginning of the game, I was really hopeful that she would later return to Blackgate as Batgirl, and that would be our introduction to her, or that maybe Dick Grayson would be involved in some way. And so the fact that they weren't just left me feeling like there were some missed opportunities. And yeah, I felt like there were a lot of moments in the game that would have been more interesting if there was more tension. And even like, I'll bring up the courtroom scene again. It kind of reminds me of an old Alfred Hitchcock quote where he talks about how, if you want to surprise an audience, you have a dinner scene that's 5 minutes long and then a bomb suddenly goes off and everyone's going to be shocked for about 10 seconds. But if you want a really suspenseful scene, you tell the audience at the beginning there's a bomb that's going to go off in 5 minutes, and then you just let the dinner scene play out. And so like I thought that was a great example of moments where they're clearly trying to shock the audience. It's like, this doesn't really feel like how Harvey Dent would become Two-Face, but oh, there it is. Versus if it had been like the standard, Falcone's up on the stand and Harvey Dent is kind of getting in his face shouting at him, I think that would have been a much more tense scene. So I did think there were a lot of missed opportunities in how they utilized some of the characters.
I agree there. I also think that there's like 3 key moments that I think they could have done that would have been incredible to see for not only an Arkham Origins sequel, but also in a Batman VR game. The first one would have been, of course, that Two-Face scene where he's in the courtroom, he's interrogating or trying to like question Falcone at the stand. And we see the iconic moment from Bruce Wayne's point of view, maybe in the back of the court, very similar to what we see in like the Long Halloween when he is in disguise and he's seeing that from his point of view in the back of the courtroom, but he can't do anything about it. That would have been one cool moment. Another one would have been Dick Grayson. Yeah, it would have been the death of the Graysons at, of course, Haley Circus or whatever it is. Like seeing there or going there on like a random date or whatever, or just like Bruce Wayne going out as Bruce Wayne. And then you see the thug and the mobsters talking about, the fine Graysons like owing them money. And you're like, what the hell is that about? And then you go and sit down and then you see that happen. As a Batman fan, you already know what's going to happen. But as, somebody seeing that in VR, that would have been amazing. And then you take in Dick Grayson, he becomes Robin. And then maybe you have a few missions as Robin. You could go around as Robin with like a staff and have a little bit different gameplay with that. And then another one would have been Batgirl. Like having a Batgirl scene where she's like, you already had Barbara Gordon. You already set her up in the previous game, or at least they didn't, but they know that they would set it up in the previous game. And you could have easily had Batgirl in here and had her have gameplay. So there are those moments right there as, I don't mean know if you could say like as a Batman fan, but as someone who would have made a VR game for Batman, those would have been the key moments for Arkham Origins, the VR game that I would have came up with. But what about you, Kobe? I feel like you probably have some missed opportunities that you had.
To me, the story fundamentally in the premise is a missed opportunity because so much of the game is spent undercover in the prison, which by the way, is my mic okay, or is it?
You kind of sound like you're kind of robotic a little bit.
How is this? Is this better?
Yeah, that sounds a lot better.
Okay, so there are so many missed opportunities here. To me, the Bat family is the biggest missed opportunity. We're missing out on Batgirl, Nightwing, Robin, all these sort of things. This could have been a VR game where you're assembling. Think about this, okay? Instead of chasing this Rat King guy that doesn't exist and is not a character, what if the game was Batman assembling the Bat family? This whole game was him getting the Bat family together. And and just marketed as Harvey Dent's origin story. Why have this mystery of the Rat King when it doesn't pay off and it's not even a real character? And in addition to that, we could have been driving around Gotham in the Batmobile. We could have been flying around Gotham in the Batwing. So as far as VR technology is concerned, the game makes progress over Arkham VR 2016, but it's painfully obvious the limitations of the game. They even said our goal is for it to be like Arkham Asylum. It's like, well, Arkham Asylum came out 15 years ago, homie. Like that's an old game. Um, is it 50? Yeah, 2009, 15 years ago.
Yeah, 15.
So you're trying to make a game in VR that plays like a 15-year-old, console game. To me, the best opportunity for the franchise, and and VR is cool. Marcel, I really would encourage you to play it because it is fun. Don't get me wrong. It is fun. The gameplay is
The
cool.
first week of November, bro, I'm buying that because I literally cannot wait to play it. Like I'm excited, and even like that Arkham Asylum comparison, that's kind of true because like in many ways you're stuck in Blackgate. It's Arkham Blackgate at that point, right? It's essentially Arkham Origins Blackgate, the VR version, where you have to fight through
Right.
Blackgate and do all that stuff. So I am excited to see what they do with that. Like personally, like I'm not even trying to really spoil myself, but at the same time, I don't really care about spoilers because it kind of enhances what I'm going to see in the future. Because I don't know when it's going to happen or what's really happening, but I am excited to see exactly what happens.
Yeah, and by the way, there's a lot that in the synopsis that we went over that's excluded. That was just a high level overview. There's a lot of subplot lines and a lot of things that I left out. So there's still plenty of surprises in there. And the game is to me, it just really exemplifies like what it could have been, but also how much unexplored real estate there is in the Arkham franchise. There still is a lot to do in this universe, in my opinion. But yeah, that's really where I fall with it.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that this definitely was a really solid addition. And as far as like I don't know, it's something that in the next year or so, and especially once I finally get a chance to play it, my opinion of it might improve. Like I might go from thinking it's like a 7 out of 10 to like an 8 out of 10, but I totally agree. I don't think it quite scratched my itch when it comes to the flat screen games. And again, I know that there's going to be people who just disagree with that and want me to just embrace VR as the future. But frankly, even with Arkham Shadow, it's not to a point yet where I'm feeling the need to like sell my PlayStation and buy a VR as quickly as I can. It's just not there yet.
I was about to ask you guys, what do you think the longevity is? So I'll start with you. Like, what do you think the longevity of Arkham Shadows is? I guess we could try to compare it to Arkham Knight, but even to this day, bro, I literally get the urge to play Arkham Knight. I get on my PC, I like download a mod, I play it for like, a couple hours. I'm like, damn, this is fun. And then I leave. Like, do you think that in like a year or two's time, you're still going to have that VR set and you're going to go back and be like, I want to go play some challenge modes on Arkham Shadows? Do you think you're going to do that sometime?
So it's actually interesting that you bring that up because I have the same thought in the sense that, and not only do I play the challenge modes of the previous Arkham games, I play through the stories like once a year. And they continue to hold up. I've never really gotten bored of them. But what's interesting is the only game that has a significant number of moments, excuse me, that make me want to turn off the game for a while and then come back later is Arkham Knight. And it's all these moments in the story where Batman's like, who is the Arkham Knight? I'm going to go ask everyone in Gotham. And then I'm going to go help Poison Ivy find flowers. And then I'm going to like go underground to where I think he is, even though it's going to be a fake out. Because once you've played it once, you know where it's going. You know, okay, yeah, the Arkham Knight isn't there. We're just going there because the game wants me to. And I feel like Arkham Shadow hurts its replayability by making its story basically exclusively that. The entire story of Arkham Shadow is basically, I need to find the Rat King. Who's the Rat King? I'm going to ask people. I'm going to go undercover in Blackgate. And you don't have the benefit that Arkham Knight had where, Professor Pig is in Gotham doing stuff and Two-Face is in Gotham doing stuff and Penguin's doing stuff. Like, and there's active stories happening on the side that can entertain you even when the story gets a little slow. So as far as the story goes, I don't see this being one that people replay over and over. Maybe I'm wrong. As far as challenges go, I do think, again, I haven't played it myself personally, but I could see myself jumping in here and there just to experience the immersive, life-sized rendering of Gotham and kind of a different spin on the combat. But no, I just don't see it having the same longevity.
Another note on that is there are 3 combat challenge maps and 3 stealth challenge maps, so it's pretty minimal.
Damn, that's it.
Yeah. There's also, if there's story DLC, that would be good. Arkham Knight, to your point, it's one of the most replayable games ever. The free roam and driving around the Batmobile and the combat is so good. And with that being said, Arkham Shadow is very immersive and it is really cool. You know, the thing about it is, I kind of think that if this game was actually just Arkham Asylum reskinned in VR, I would have liked it a little better. I know that's like weird to say, but to your point, like Arkham Asylum is perfect for VR. If you put that game in VR, it would be fucking badass. Can you imagine like
Bro,
the
imagine
nightmares that you would have?
walking into Arkham Asylum, that the first mission in VR with Joker in your hands would be fucking incredible.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. I mean, and even just walking around in the outside yard and all the stuff, like it's such an immersive game that whereas this game, it is still immersive, but you're not in Gotham very much. It's very minimal in Gotham, and so yeah. And now you understand when they're like, yeah, our map is like, it's like the size of Arkham Asylum roughly. They're saying that it's the same size as the asylum, but there is no Gotham map really. It's like at the very beginning of the game, there's like a little bit. Um, so that was a little bit disappointing. But overall, I still think that they did some cool stuff in the game, and I think that it's going to not be super replayable in terms of the longevity. I think this is going to come and go, and people are right now enamored with it, and really talking about it. But I do think it is going to phase pretty quickly, if I'm being honest.
No,
Well,
I agree. Yeah, go.
I'd actually kind of put that to the test a little bit too, because I am seeing a lot of people who really like it. I'm also seeing though that there's just not very much buzz around this game. Maybe it's gone up since then, but I looked up Arkham Shadow ending on YouTube. It had 15,000 views, and this was posted like probably 48 hours after the game came out. Now, if this was Spider-Man 2 or Arkham Knight or some of these other games, you would be seeing hundreds of thousands of views, if not millions. So between that and then just, the buzz on Twitter is mostly I'm seeing the people actually involved in the game retweeting positive reviews, which is great, and they should be doing it. But I'm not seeing it get discussed the same way that other AAA superhero games get discussed.
Not to be that guy, but I mainly just see influencers talking about this game, bro. I don't see regular people that are normal people that are just everyday people playing this game. And I'm sure there are some people that are, I'm not saying that there aren't, but the large majority of people are like, the people that are getting the free, VR headsets that went to freaking MetaQuest Studios like 3 months prior to play this game. And that's the only real buzz I'm seeing. I'm not seeing it feels it's manufactured buzz is what it feels like. And not to like bash camouflage or nothing like that, but that's what it is. And they're doing a good job about getting the right influencers to market their game for them. But it's not, I don't think, I really am interested to see the sales when it's like all said and done, like in the next couple of months when it actually is, finally up and we see the sales. But I really just, I don't know if there's a lot of people actually playing this game or buying the MetaQuest 3 for this game specifically, just because of some social media buzz from, the social influencers. So yeah, I agree, Jake. There's not a lot of buzz around this game. It's kind of weird.
Well, and not to mention, and Kobe will probably have some stuff to say about this. I think that this is something that we've not just seen for this game. It's been a trend for a couple of years now, where basically what happens is when a AAA game, and particularly a AAA superhero game, is coming out, the developers will usually fly a handful of influencers who are generally speaking positive toward their products out. And this is smaller creators and bigger creators as well. And they kind of schmooze with them. They're like, yeah, come play the game and you'll get to meet the directors and like some of the game developers on it. And they'll talk you through their passion for it and some of the inspirations and some of the hidden lore that you can find. And, and then especially once it starts getting into like, yeah, and we'll give you a free copy of the game that you can play early. We'll give you a system to play it on. We'll put your name in the credits. And this is something where it maybe sounds like I'm saying that people's reviews are bought, which isn't really what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that if I had been flown out to London to play Suicide Squad with Sefton Hill, who was telling me all these like Arkham behind the scenes details that no one else knows, and he's like buttering me up with like, I really like your channel and it's really cool. And do you have any feedback for me on the game or things we could implement in DLC? And oh, by the way, here's a PlayStation 5 and a free early copy of the game. I probably would have given the game a much higher review because at that point, I'm not only reviewing the game, but I'm also reviewing the experience. And I feel like I've listened to a few reviews. Many of them I think are pretty honest and do a good job of giving critiques, but also, pointing out things that they liked. But I have seen a handful that seem overwhelmingly positive in areas that they perhaps otherwise would not be. And I mean,
it is a modern masterpiece, dog. What are you talking about? It's a modern masterpiece.
Well, and we even saw it. Like it's interesting because you're kind of expected to give it a good review. Now you don't have to, and generally the people that they fly out to play the games are going to like it anyway. But we saw this with Suicide Squad. If you'll remember, IGN went out, and while everyone was kind of having fun with the beta, and the influencers who got flown out to play a beta with Rocksteady were saying, yeah, the game seems pretty cool before we got the full thing and saw how poorly the story continued. IGN gave it a negative response, and they were denied an early access code. And it was like kind of a scandal where the developers and the publisher was kind of like scoffing IGN for daring to give them a bad review.
Ladies and gentlemen, nothing in life is free. Nothing. That Oculus Rift headset and the game early and that trip to Washington with hotel and food and that trip to Gamescom Germany, they're not paying for that to get a negative review, bruv. They're not doing all that. They're not giving you all this free shit and free flights and free hotel. They're not doing all that to get a 5 out of 10, bro. They're doing that to pump the airwaves with positivity. That's what they are looking for. That is your job. If you get all those things, because think about this. Okay, tickets to Gamescom, $500. Flight from North America to Germany round trip, $1,500. They probably were first class or premium seating, so probably $5,000 each way. Then you have a hotel, multiple days in Germany, very expensive. Okay, so we're already at least $5,000. Then we had a follow-up trip to Washington. Seattle's not a cheap city, so you're going to Seattle, flights there and back, hotel, food. Then you get not only the MetaQuest 3S, but the regular MetaQuest, that's $1,000, and you get the game early. Okay, so we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars per person. Multiply that by all these YouTubers. That adds up. Do you think they're putting in all that money and budget for fun or because they want honest feedback on the game? Fuck no. They are buying positive reviews. That is what they are doing. That is the only reason that any company that is profit-minded, as Warner Brothers
would spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on this campaign. And so there's layers to it. There's Kind of Funny, who just outright is paid to promote the game. They're a sponsored partner. But everybody's paid in a certain way, indirectly, through all those free trips and free experiences and free items. And yeah, okay, if you get that free headset, you really think you're going to go out and be like, yeah, the game is shit, 4 out of 10. I mean, no, that would burn your bridge with Warner Brothers. You would never get a code ever again. You would never get flown out anywhere ever again. And we've seen this happen to K-Wing and other YouTubers. You can't be honest. Okay. So, and I'm not saying that people are lying. I'm not saying that people are lying. What I am saying is that I think that context colors your review and your experience. I think that you subconsciously are experiencing the game in a different way when in the back of your mind, you're like, yeah, I'm buddy with the game director and I met him a bunch of times and I get flown to Germany and all these different places. I think that it's not a conscious thing. I'm not saying people are dishonest, but I am saying, let's be honest. Warner Brothers is not putting up all that money to get shit on. That's just a fact.
No, 100%. Here's my thing too, is that like, if I came out when this game was first being announced and whatnot, and I wasn't like skeptical about it, if I started writing this game like, oh my God, this is the greatest idea ever. We're going to play as Batman. This is going to be like Gotham, all over the place. We're going to be going everywhere, blah, blah, blah. If I was writing this game and following all the devs, like I probably would have had the same treatment in many ways. There's smaller YouTubers than me that were doing that. And I feel like, again, if I played my cards right, I probably easily could have. And if I did, like Jake said, if I got flown out and I got to play the game early and they're like, yo, we love your channel. Yo, we're going to give you a goddamn MetaQuest 3. We're going to give you all this stuff. I'm going to be joy. I'm going to be like, hell yeah, you guys' game is awesome. What the hell? I'll give me all
10
your
out of 10 IGN, best game ever made.
Modern masterpiece. All my videos are going to be modern masterpiece. That's all it's going to say in the title, is that you guys' game is like fucking amazing. So honestly,
there's like full video essays being written that this is a masterpiece. I'm like, bro, come on, bro, get out of here. And by the way, none of those videos are coming from people who were not given free stuff or paid. Not one.
Yeah, I've not seen. They're all early reviews who played.
The only reviews I know of on YouTube, and I could be wrong, but the only reviews I know where the people were not paid either directly or indirectly to promote the game are mine and Irogen's. Those are the only two I'm aware of that are spoiler reviews, or even regular, actually just any review. I have not seen any other reviews, and I've searched heavily. I've watched every review, but ultimately I stopped watching them because they all are the same thing. It's just 8 out of 10. The game's amazing. VR is amazing. It's the best thing ever. Thank you, MetaQuest and Oculus for sending me, or not Oculus, Camouflage and MetaQuest for sending me this headset. It's so awesome. Thank you for flying me to Germany. It was awesome. And it's like, bro, this is not a real review. Like, come on. Oh, and by the way, the names of these people are in the credits of the game, bro.
What?
Wait, what? Yes, absolutely. There's a whole section there. Oh yeah, there's a whole section of the credits at the very end, and it goes on and on and on of all the people who, and so those are all the reviews on YouTube right now. And I'm like, you can't trust this. You're in the credits of the game. You basically made the game for.
That's like the director of the game saying that this game is dog shit, or like this game is like mid or something like that. Like, you're not going to hear that, obviously.
It's a little silly, but it's hard to find reviews that don't have conflicting opinions. I'll be honest. And again, I want to reiterate, I'm not arguing that people hate the game and they're lying about it and they're saying, no, I actually love it. And then behind closed doors, they're like, the game sucks. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that there is an unconscious filter that you have when you're playing the game in certain contexts. And I'll be honest, I probably had a little bit of that with Batman Telltale because I was on the inside of that. I was getting the codes for that. And there probably is a part of that. If I look back on it and I'm being just genuine and honest, there probably is a part of that where like I was buddies with the community manager. I was buddies with multiple devs, and it does 100%.
Yeah,
But
they tried to get me into E3. They were like, hey, if you're in LA, you could come in and we could get you a pass inside so you could play this game early. I'm like, oh, I can't fly out there, but if I was out there, I totally would have. And they always gave me like free, like early review copies too. And I know they gave you the same thing because we were very positive about the first season of that game.
right. And if I'm just being totally honest, it does impact your review of the game. And juxtaposing that with Arkham Knight, where I didn't have that because I was just starting my channel at that period, just starting my pivot into Arkham. I wasn't getting a code, so I was like, fuck you, Rocksteady. Give me my money back for this shitty DLC.
Refund,
you guys
bro.
fucking suck. I made a video and it was called Give Me My Money Back Scam Steady. I called him Scam Steady for like months on end.
Still your most iconic video, bro.
I was so unhinged. And then it was like, and then I mellowed out a little bit. And now I'm back at being unhinged because I don't give a fuck now. But so that's just okay. That's my opinion on that. So again, I'm not saying people are liars. I'm not saying they actually hate the game. They're just saying that they love it. I'm just saying that when you're buddies with the devs, and I know this because I've been in this situation, it unconsciously does influence your perception about you're not objective. You're just not objective, because if you come out and you say this game was trash, like if you say that, then your friends that work at that studio are going to be like, damn, bro, you hurt my feelings. Like it's a different dynamic than than reviewing a game. It's a different dynamic when you're friends with the devs. It just is.
Well, it's very true. It was very hard for me to say anything negative about Gotham Knights when I have DMs with not only some of the like lower level devs on the game, but some of the main people behind the story and the gameplay decisions. I mean, you really do start trying to look for the positive as much as you can, because there are those personal stakes of like, I like chatting with this dude, not just because he's a game developer, but because he's cool to talk to. And, you don't want to sever that relationship or burn that bridge. And it really does make you kind of reassess your criticisms. And if you can kind of look at them in a different way where you can minimize them a little bit. And I think what this boils down to is Arkham Shadow right now. If you watch 10 videos on YouTube, I would estimate that 9 of those 10 videos would be either an 8 or a 10 out of 10. Like it's in that range. Mine and Slick Moth's, I think, are the only two that are more skewed toward like a 6 or a 7. And in my video, I acknowledge I really do like what they did. Like, I don't think this is a bad game by any stretch. I in fact, think
it's a solid game. It's a solid game.
Like, I think it's by far better than Suicide Squad. I think it's even better than Gotham Knights. And I think there are moments that are very Arkham quality worthy. I think that there are like the therapy session where you're in there with Jonathan Crane and Harleen Quinzel. It was cool. Like, that was a really cool moment. And so I do think the game is good. But I do think over time, rather than seeing this game kind of settle at like a 9, 10 out of 10, I think we're probably going to see the opinion settle at more of a 7 or 8 out of 10. And I could be wrong. And again, maybe I'll play the game and be like, no, I was wrong. It's a 10 out of 10. But just as I'm kind of seeing the buzz and talking to people who've played it who aren't influencers, the opinion, generally speaking, doesn't seem to be quite as high as kind of just the standard YouTuber would have you believe right now.
Yeah, so I mean, you guys kind of convinced me that this game is good in the beginning, and I'm still going to play it 100%. I really can't wait to see like how this all kind of unfolds, because I genuinely think that even if there is a little bit of buzz behind this game, as little buzz as there might be, and even the longevity of the game, I still think that after all of the announcements and the trailers and all this stuff, I think I might be wrong here, because of course WB is stupid as hell, but hopefully WB realizes that we want a traditional Arkham game, that we would get something akin to this, but in Arkham format, where we're actually playing as Batman the whole time and we actually have like a good experience doing something with this, instead of having it being very limited, being exclusive. Of course, there are rumors that Rocksteady's doing that. There are rumors that the Batman game might be coming. And I'm more excited about that than I am about playing this VR game. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I just want a regular Batman game. I think most people want that too. But yeah, this is still, I guess, serviceable. It is definitely better than Arkham 2016. And I think Arkham 2016, like, that longevity was like a week. I think people, like, the trailer was out for a second because Mark Hamill was in there. That got popping. And then after that, it was essentially like the game came out and that was it. Like, it was essentially like dead after the first week. Hopefully it doesn't happen to this game. It actually kind of like sticks with people for a little bit longer. But even now, like, this first week that it's out, it's only been out for 2 days. I'm not really seeing a lot of, like, you know, extra buzz online, kind of like with Spider-Man 2. There's a lot of controversy with all the story beats that they had and the suit fucking Miles wore in the third act. It was horrible. Holy crap. You know, there's so many things that those games like Batman Arkham Knight had, with all the controversy that had surrounded around it, with Arkham Knight and the ending and how Batman died. All that stuff helps push a game to at least somewhat of a legacy state. This game doesn't seem like it's ever going to reach that, for the simple fact that, one, it's on VR, and two, the story isn't, you know, to that standard. It just realistically probably isn't to that standard. And, you know, from what I'm hearing from you guys and from what I'm hearing online, it you know, could be one of the best games ever, but the fact that it's stuck on VR, it hurts it a lot. And I just don't see it being remembered as something that is pivotal to the Arkham universe. But, you know, hopefully this opens WB's eyes to make an actual good game. That'd be amazing.
Well, and one final thing that we can discuss. Oh, go ahead, Jake.
Okay, yeah. So just to go off of what Marcel said briefly, yeah, I think that the exclusivity also hurts it. The fact that it's only on MetaQuest 3. And I'm with you in that I would have been more excited for another flat screen game. Again, I know there's people out there that can't even fathom that, and I don't have any issue with that. Like, if you love the VR experience to the point where it kind of ruins flat screen games for you, like, I have no problem with that. Like, go enjoy your VR games. But there's something to be said too. Like, Christopher Nolan, when he was doing The Dark Knight Rises, one of his big issues was this has to be bigger than The Dark Knight. Like, fans aren't going to be okay with me doing a smaller scale movie than The Dark Knight. And they're not even really going to be okay with me doing a movie that's the same scale as The Dark Knight. Like, it needs to be bigger. And that does make expectations difficult. And so with Arkham Shadow, it is kind of a step back toward the Asylum scope. I do think it's hard to maintain that level of hype versus if it was like, yeah, Batman, Robin, Batgirl, and Catwoman are all playable characters. Harvey Dent turns into Two-Face in it. You see the origin of like 6 other major villains. You'll see the first kill of Victor Zsasz. Like, there's all this stuff. But yeah, I don't know. Like, the main takeaway for me is I'm still glad that Camouflage made this, because Warner Brothers really, like, stupidly has decided to just sit on this franchise for a decade and do nothing with it. And so I'm actually very grateful that Camouflage went to Warner Brothers and said, can we please get this franchise going? And even though I have nitpicks with the story, I'm glad it exists. Like, I'm glad that this is an entry in the Arkhamverse. And to be completely honest, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing them do another one either.
I was just going to say, I agree with all that. And to me, what I would say is that this is one thing that people have said about this game is I wish it had a console version. Like, I wish it was a PS5 version and you could buy either PS5 or VR.
I'm one of those people.
Okay, but Marcel, here's the problem with that is if this game was a console game, it would be like really bad. It would be like way worse than any other Arkham game. It would feel like
the thing is that the console, I would perceive the console version as a bigger scale than the VR version. You know what I mean? I would think that there would be this type of plot line in the Arkham version, but it would be expanded upon in the VR, where you're playing more as Matches Malone, the Blackgate, but then you would have the still Batman side quest type of thing in a regular flat screen. That's what I would perceive they would do. Kind of like, you know, I don't know what any other game that would really do. I guess Arkham Knight and Arkham VR in 2016 are kind of a good collaboration with that, but you know what I mean, something like that.
Yeah, and I can see that if it was an expanded game, but if they were just to convert it as it currently stands into a VR experience, it would feel like a pretty big downgrade into a flat screen experience. It would be dog shit. Yeah, because just the combat is so simplistic. A lot of the experiences, I will say, when you're standing around that table with Jim Gordon and Two-Face and Harvey Dent reaches out his hand and you shake his hand, it really is cool. It's a fun experience, and Marcel, I think you're going to love playing through the game. I really do. Yeah, I would say overall, my final thoughts are I'm glad the game was made, even though I give it probably a 6.5 out of 10. Even though I wasn't blown away with the story, even though I didn't love it, I did like it, and I am glad that they did this. This was better than doing nothing at all. Which you can't say about some of the Arkham comics, for instance, which it would have been better if they never came out. And it's like, how is this even canon? This is like horrible. A lot of the Arkham comics are good, by the way, but some are not. This game, it definitely fits in, and it's competent, and there's some good things in here. So I'm glad they made the game.
Bro, you sold me on the fact that I could dab up Two-Face, bro. That sounds like a legit ass game. What the hell? Tell me
you can shake his hand or not. It's your choice.
Oh shit! I could refuse the dab up. That's nuts, bro. I might actually do that. I gotta record my whole because I'd have too much fun doing that shit.
You would, and there's also a lot of choices in the game too. There's a lot of dialogue choices,
almost like a Telltale,
and there's a lot of cool stuff. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to play. I guess my final thoughts are, from what I've seen from like the couple like hours that I've watched from the actual game, like the gameplay, again, it's serviceable. The story, it's serviceable, and it's nice to hear, of course, Roger Craig Smith back as Batman. Of course, I'm blanking on his name. Troy Baker is freaking Harvey Dent, you know, and it's nice to hear, you know, the previous voice actors back, and at least elevate the immersion a little bit more than what it could have been if it was like, you know, some random nobody just like doing something like an impression of Kevin Conroy or something. But I do think that this game, I might have bagged on it before, but really it is. I'm happy that they've done nothing or something instead of nothing with the Arkham franchise. Like, they've just been sitting on it for 9 years, and the only thing that they've done in the whole universe has been Suicide Squad. And holy crap, yeah, that's a stain that's never going to go away, unfortunately. But they can move forward with that by making more Arkham Origins sequel games like this. And yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing a sequel, or even something that tries to take the criticisms, like, of course, like I said, with the numbers, just make it a free flow combat where the character or the player gets to do whatever they want to the people that they're fighting and stuff like that, you know, making the story a little bit more grandiose and making, you know, Robin and Nightwing more of characters. That would be actually really interesting. But I genuinely think that, you know, I can't wait to play it. I think it's going to be a fun game. And yeah, you guys sold me. You guys sold me on the game. I can't believe it.
One last question to end on. Do we think there will be another Arkham game from Camouflage in VR? Or do you think this is the only one?
I think it's possible, depending on how well the game sells. I think I'd answer your question with another question, which, if they do another one, what would you like to see, like narratively or gameplay wise? What would you most want to see them tackle if they come back? Because for me, this game wasn't a failure by any stretch of the imagination. Like you mentioned, it's better than a lot of the comics. I liked it better than Arkham Origins Blackgate, Arkham VR. I liked it better than the Batgirl DLC, even in Arkham Knight. Like, I think it's up there with the Arkham content. I think next I'd want to see maybe a more, or I guess a less grounded villain take center stage. Like, I think it could be cool to see the origin of Clayface in VR, and maybe some implementation with the Bat family.
Marcel?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to wait for the sales too to see if they would make another one, but I think that if it does do well, they would go for a sequel here. I think that what they could do, of course, is that whole Bat family type of like origin story, like start off with Dick Grayson and then maybe do Batgirl and, try to make Batman in this universe a little bit more soft in his early years and show him, since they already kind of tackled that angry Batman type of arc in this game, then go for a more friendly Batman in the next one if they're going to do something like that, and try to make it a little bit more, I guess, family oriented and more emotional with the whole Dick Grayson being adopted thing and Batgirl being kind of a part of that. And then you could have some type of relationship with them, and then you could have side villains on the side. That'd be cool. I would like something like that. Or they could just make a traditional Arkham game that does that and make it actually accessible to everybody. That'd be cool too.
Sorry, one more thing I'd like to add. I think that they should do one where they introduce Jason Todd and then establish in the canon that Barbara Gordon gets paralyzed before Tim Drake becomes Robin, so that it completely contradicts the Matter of Family.
Bro, I'd be you're gonna piss me off, bro. Don't even get me started on the Matter of Family. It would be cool if you got captured as Jason, like you were going out trying to go for Joker as Jason Todd in like VR, and you get captured and you're just getting tortured by him. That'd be pretty fucking sick.
What I would like to see is a Bat family origin story, either between, I don't know the exact timeline. Is it between Asylum and City or City and Night? It could be either one, depending on which phase of the Bat family we're talking about. That would be great. I think between those two, I'm kind of good on the pre-Asylum stuff. We've already gotten a lot there, pre-Asylum now. A lot of different games, a lot of comics. So I would say let's go between City and Night or Asylum and City. And really anywhere between Asylum and Night, I think would be really good to get a future game. Also, you could do the Bat family after Arkham Knight, Gotham Knights of sorts, but putting it in the Arkham universe, I think would be a lot better.
I like that. The only problem would be the voice. I think people would complain about Kevin Conroy not being there for the in between, and maybe if they try to bring him back in some way, or they show how Batman comes back pre-Suicide Squad. Like, I think Roger Craig Smith can still pull it off, but I think people would be kind of like meh about it. You know what I mean?
They would be, but unfortunately, they're going to have to get over it.
I think I think a Batman Beyond game would be cool, where they just retcon Suicide Squad and they just like act like that never happened. And it's just like after Arkham Knight, Batman or whoever, Damian Wayne is like in charge of Gotham, and then Bruce Wayne comes back or some shit, and it's just voiced by Roger Craig Smith doing an old man voice.
There you go.
Well,
all right.
I think that covers it. Let us know in the comments below what you guys thought about Arkham Shadow. If you got a chance to play it, we'd love to hear your thoughts. We'd love to hear what you thought about the story. And if you think we're wrong, we'd love to read your arguments as well. I'd be really interested to hear from people who really do think the game is a 10 out of 10. And, it could be fun to have some civil debates about it. But anyway.
Civil, that's goofy. I'm going to argue with everybody. I'm going to be disrespectful as hell.
Dude, it's hard to review things now, because if you give something a 6 out of 10, you piss off everyone who like shills the game, but you also piss off all the haters. So like,
there's just that's the worst. We gave it the worst review. We should have either committed to the bit and just shit on it, or we should have just gotten our free fucking code and praised it.
But anyway, thank you all so much for watching. The game, a 2 out of 10. You heard it from Marcel, and it's also a 10 out of 10. You heard from Kobe. So,
wait a second.
All right. Well, see you guys in the next one. And
bye, guys.